Yeah, I've got a part for that.
Good morning. If I can have everyone's attention, we'd like to get the meeting called to order. If I could ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the February 15th, 2018 Constables Education and Training Board meeting. I am pleased to announce that we have 3 new board members. I'm just going to do very brief introductions and then ask them to just say a little bit about themselves. First, I'll go through all of them first and then I'll come back. First, we have Constable Craig Westover from Venango County. He was confirmed by the Senate on November 14th, 2017. Next, we have Constable Francis Pites Jr. from Allegheny County. He was confirmed on December 11th of 2017. And then we also have Judge Thomas S. Berletic of Allegheny County. He was confirmed January 22nd of 2018. I would also just like to put formally for the record, I'd like to thank Constable Julie Sokoloff from Montgomery County and also Judge William Wenner from Dauphin County for serving on the board and for their guidance and service to the board during their tenure here. Now, if I could ask the 3 new board members if you would just make a brief introduction of yourselves, please. Constable Westover.
I like to talk on my face, so I don't like to stand behind it.
I did say brief, Craig.
Sounds like Berletic. Craig Westover. I'm a constable full-time out of Venango County for the past 23 plus years. I came in on the very first basic training class in the front of the Northwest by Mercyhurst. 2000-2006, I was an instructor for Mercyhurst in the subjects for the constable program. I come back on board with Penn State Fed. I was around 2012, I believe, when I come back online, and I've been since an instructor on all the subjects for them. I look forward to being back on the board. I just was reelected to a 6-year term, and I can tell you that through the 20-some years I've had the ability to do, I've been blessed in the ability to serve just about every type of process that we under the judicial program are permitted to serve. So I bring that experience to you. I have an open mind about the issues of the constables because I've been there, I've done it, I'm out there actively full-time. I don't have any other side jobs. This is the deal. This is my full-time occupation. So I very much know where you're coming from as a constable. I will have that perspective. Thank you.
My name's Constable Francis Pikes. Actually, you can call me Bud. I've been a constable for some 30 plus years, worked in Allegheny County. And 2016, I was vice president of the Allegheny County Constable Association. I'm pro constable. You know, this is our life, our livelihood, and I'm glad to serve you.
I wasn't going to stand up, but I will. Look, I tore my, I don't even know how I did. I signed up for something here that's a non-paid position, and I'm already in for like $100. And if I have these pants, it's even more. No, my name's Tom Berletic. I'm a senior magisterial district court judge of Allegheny County, City of McKeesport. This is my former district. I've been involved in law enforcement since I was a kid. I went to Pitt, graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in criminal justice, was a police officer for the City of McKeesport, police chief for the City of McKeesport, was elected to what we used to refer to as district justice in the City of McKeesport, served for 16 years, and then decided the grass might be greener in another location, so I took a position with the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board as a supervisor in investigations out of the Pittsburgh office. After 9 years of that, I decided I had enough of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and retired. So I left, got my senior status, and I'm back on the bench. Throughout that time, from the time I became a judge, I became associated with the constable training program. Was an original drafter for the contract for the delivery for the Western region with Penn State. And lo and behold, we got it, and the rest is history. John Fowle and Ted Mellors and I myself were talking this last week. And I've been involved in this program since it began. I've never been a constable, but I've worked alongside constables, had constables work for me for a long time. And I can appreciate where they're coming from. I think they're a very important part of the system. I know in Allegheny County and many other counties, I don't know how things would get done unless they had them. And it really irritates me when I see some counties effectively take them out of the system because I think they're an important component. But in that 21 years that I've been associated with the program, I have seen a great bit of evolution, and it's been positive evolution. And you folks that serve, you should be proud. You belong to a pretty good group. I had the opportunity to sit on this board, and I took it because I didn't want to be out of the system. I want to stay involved in it. Put a lot of hours of time into it, and I appreciate being here. So I thank Governor Wolf, the Senate, and everybody else that should be thanked. And now I'll sit down and say we want to look at my. Can you see it? And that's enough about me.
Now, really briefly, we'll go through the rest of the staff and board introductions. Tracy, if you have instructions.
Tracy Klauser, CETB staff.
Wayne Howard, Constable Training Program.
Rod Reddick, Indiana County Commissioner.
Sherry Leffler, PCCD staff.
John Fowle, PCCD.
Beth Romero, PCCD staff.
And Bob Merwine, PCCD.
Now I would ask the sitting board members for the, our first item on the agenda is the election of officers. And I would ask the board members if there are any nominations for the election of a board chair. Any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Berletti.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second it.
Can we do a roll call vote of the members, please? Commissioner Wright?
Here. Aye. Aye. Aye.
Okay, Mr. Belletti is our new board chair. I would also ask for nominations for a board vice chair. If I could hear a nomination for a board vice chair.
I would like to nominate Constable West.
I second.
Who was that?
Constable Westover.
Constable Westover. And there was a second by
I second.
Judge Belletti. Could I have a roll call vote on that one as well, please? Commissioner Wright?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So, Chair Berletti. I have no issue with going through the agenda items, or if you feel comfortable doing it, it's up to you.
Well, let's let you run with it. And, I've been on many boards, but I've never, I have to say, served as a chair. So I get up to speed.
Okay, that's fine.
Please.
That's fine. I will do that.
So what are you
Okay.
gonna do about these pants? I know I wore them here.
Okay, so to get along with board business, we will start with our action items. We have the unapproved draft minutes of our November 16th, 2017 meeting. Do we have any questions from the board on those minutes?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Next, we will move on to our unapproved financial report for February 15th, 2018 meeting, and I will turn that over to Beth Romero for the reporting.
Good morning. Fiscal reports for the second quarter of the 2017-18 state fiscal year, and it's on pages 7 through 12. Looking at page 7, under receipts, balance carried forward $2,767,345.05. Fees collected through the second quarter, $897,000. $143.40. Total funds available as of December 31st, 2017 were $4,505,040.05. And under expenditures and commitments, total cumulative expenditures as of December 31st, 2017 were $1,282,490.27. Total cumulative expenditures and commitments as of December 31st, 2017 were $7,230,587.69, and that includes $415,339.08 in administrative expenditures and commitments. And that breakdown is on page 9. And total uncommitted funds as of December 31st, 2017 is minus $2,725,547.64.
One thing I do want to point out to the board, as always, we're right now in transition between old contracts and new contracts. So we're still closing out the old contracts. Once we get those last invoices paid in, then you'll see any money remaining that was allocated on the old contracts comes back to the training fund. So once fiscal gets those closed out, at the next meeting, you'll probably see a little bit of a swing up because money comes back to the fund. So
We have a discussion on this?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for any questions.
Commissioner, you have anything you'd like to say, or?
Well, I'm always concerned when I see numbers on a ledger that are in parentheses.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that needs to be discussed, I think, to some degree, to find out where we are with that, where we're heading with that. What's the plan to fix that?
I agree. Constable Westover, you?
Well, financials, I think one of the things that I'd like to see forthcoming in one of the training bulletins is the one sheet that you produced that shows the expenditures of the program and the actual revenue coming in from fee collections. I'd like to see that somehow attached and sent out, because something I hear, whether I'm talking to other constables out there in the field or whether I go to a training class and I'm asked, where did all our money go? You know, especially constables that have been in the program for a number of years like I have, will say, well, we had all these millions of dollars back in the day. Was that money rated? Did that money get taken? And a lot of times that's the opinion out there, is the money was rated somehow out of the fund. But looking at the numbers that I'm seeing, it truly is the case that the surcharge that's coming in is not meeting expenditures of the program. And knowing firsthand as an instructor, all the cuts that have been made by the universities in order to make the finances work, and BCCD staff, everything they've done to cut costs, we're out of balance. And I think it really needs to be conveyed to every constable in the state that truly this thing has been out of balance, but it started a while back. And the cost cutting and cost savings have also started a while back. It wasn't something that all of a sudden we woke up, we're out of money. So I think that would be a very educational tool going forward, that everybody in the state's notified, here's where we're really at, and this is why we're in the issue we are right now.
Okay, I think you had a very good question there. Can anybody answer? The first question was about money being rated, as you just said. Anybody answer that? Has there ever been an instance, I'm not aware, where the state has taken money, because they've done it everywhere. Have they taken money from the constable fund? We need to know what we're getting involved in here.
I can tell you that I've been with the program since it started, and money has never been taken out of the fund, for any other purpose. The money in this fund has been used to support the training program entirely.
So that's pure room.
Right. In fact, when the training started, there was about a $3.5 million balance in the fund because of the previous act that was overturned by the Supreme Court. Because under that act, that training act, it was $2.50. I think it was like $2.50, and so that started getting collected. And then, of course, between AOPC, I think president judges and constables all appealed that act, and it went through all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it took about 3 years before it was overturned. So those fees were still being collected, and accumulated in the fund. And we had a positive balance probably up until the mid-2000s. And that's when revenues, was the first time, 2008, 2007, when the board at that time really started looking at revenues because they were starting to go flat or decrease slightly. And so I can tell you the fund has not been rated. I've heard all the rumors. I've had constables tell me they have documented proof that we gave $5 million to the state police to buy new weapons. It's absolutely untrue.
Okay.
Well, I think it's incumbent on us to put that out there as constables. When you hear those kinds of rumors being said out in the field, say, I was at the meeting. These are what the people are telling me. This is what the numbers are showing. That this is just a rumor that's been out there, but it's been a persistent rumor over a number of years, and it needs to end.
One of the things I would point out is our annual reports out there. They're out there every year, and Constable Westover highlighted in our annual reports over the last couple of years, we have listed out all the things we've done on contracts and administrative costs to reduce expenditures. We put that in there every year. So you can look back at those annual reports that are out there.
That's transparent, it's not hidden underneath the rock or something, right?
Correct.
Okay, Francis, do you have any?
No, I think Constable Westover.
He did a very good job.
did
I have
a real fine job.
I have a couple points I'd like to make, and I was going to wait until a little further on, since we brought it up. As I stated, I've been involved in this program for, how long, 21 years?
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't been involved from this aspect of it, the inner workings, but I've worked closely with John and his folks. We've developed some really good working relationships. And as the last few years, particularly as last year, and with my news of possibly coming to the board, I'm glad I'm sitting here today, because I really expected to see a 30,000-pound elephant sitting in the middle of that room. I think it is there. And I think that 30,000-pound elephant needs to be addressed. And what I'm talking about is we cannot afford, as a board, the commission certainly can't afford, to wake up one day and there's no money to pay anything. So this has got to be resolved one way or the other, whether we go to the Senate, the House. I don't want to hear about lobbying, horse shit, or anything like that. I'm talking about we need to write this program. I have a couple questions. Mr. Fowler, I'm hoping you can answer these questions. What's the PCD done to make the governor or legislator aware of the need for the surcharge increase? And I have a copy of House Bill 1434. I don't know if the PCD was involved in this, but you're aware of it.
I'm aware of it.
What's going on here? I'm brand new. I'm in my first 20 minutes of my term as is.
As the board chair.
Yeah, as the board chair also, as is Francis and Craig. He's been here before, but now he's starting on new. And we need to know what's going on. So if you can answer that.
And I can only speak to things I've been involved in. I can tell you that everybody knows about the House resolution study that was done and I think released in 2014. That was done by the Joint Government Commission, and in that they recommended the surcharge increase to $10 from $5 to $10. I've been told that there have been discussions with various legislators. I have not participated in those.
Well, why not? Why aren't you involved at that level?
That's not my decision. And so, some of the feedback.
What would benefit by you being there? Because I'm just curious.
All I can say is that
You're a good soldier.
all I can say is that the feedback that I've received is that the legislature has no interest in increasing the surcharge. And, I guess my concern with that is you guys collect a lot of costs and fines, a lot of money that goes to the county, to the state, to whoever. And I'm not sure that legislators understand, you've now been required to go to training for 24 years. You're required to train, you're required to be certified, you're required to have insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know how effectively the message has been communicated. And I know constables have talked to their legislators individually. It's one of those, I think, I don't think they're getting the message on a volume level. And I know various associations have talked to their reps and their senators and everything, but they're getting it in small increments. There's 1,300 certified constables on average a year. And I've said this for years. If 500 of you approach your legislators simultaneously and said, you guys require us to go to training and be certified, and I'm an independent contractor, I pay my own way, et cetera, then, you guys have to give me the tools to be trained. And I think it's really up to constables. You guys are the ones who are going to benefit the most and be hurt the most if this doesn't get fixed. Okay? So I really say you are the ones who can fix this. This board can only do so much. I don't think legislators have been approached in a manner that they look at this and go, hey, this does need to be fixed. I'm not an attorney. I don't know what's going to happen if the board has to drastically reduce training, hours or what we offer, et cetera. What kind of position does that put constables in working for the courts? And I'm yet to see anybody in the current state of affairs saying somebody who is a sworn officer who's carrying a gun and can take somebody into custody needs less training. So I really have said this for the last couple of years, and I know there's a lot of differences among constables, but if you guys don't focus on this issue, I think a year from now it's going to be a totally different story. And you're the ones who will be impacted the most. And I'm not trying to be flip, but it's not going to impact me. I'm a state employee, and I'll be honest, I got enough time in the state, I could go tomorrow. And that'd probably make a lot of you happy. But
Sorry.
I don't take that personally. I understand. Everybody's got their different viewpoints on how the role of a constable. And I guess to me, I've seen that discussion occur for 24 years, and it's never been resolved. But this one, we don't have the luxury of time. So, not to be long-winded, Judge, but...
Well, I appreciate your candor, and
Yeah.
I do agree to a big point that the constables, unfortunately, they're not the masters of their own destiny, but they can become part of being the masters of their destiny. But I think there also has to be some assistance come from the agency that administers the training. I'm not saying it's an equal amount, but I think to a large degree, something's got to come from the PCCD via the board or from the board to the PCCD, but somebody's got to walk down the street and knock on a door and say, before there's a zero fund balance, we got to do something with this, like right now. Right now.
Well, and if you give me the opportunity, I'd like to address that
Please.
a little bit, because agency executives have spoken to individuals. We do and are required to provide monthly and weekly reports up through the governor's policy office and to the Commonwealth legislative offices. This has been an issue. It has been being brought up and it has been included in those reports for multiple years now. When you look at the fund balances as we talk about it, you look at the trend report on page 12, you'll see that this is not a new thing, as was mentioned. The expenditures have exceeded the revenues for more than a decade consistently. So it has been on the annual reports, as John indicated. So this has been brought up to change. It has been discussed. Everybody's aware of it.
I'm not suggesting, Mr. Irwin, I don't think anyone here is suggesting that it hasn't been. But what we are hoping for is that it be brought up a little bit stronger. Because I don't want to, it'll be a short term of appointment here at the end of the year. We got a zero fund balance. And you can't even pay for me to stay at the Crown Plaza. Which, by the way, I'm going to have to go for therapy because that's where I used to, I guess, stay all the time when I worked for the Gaming Control Board. But as long as you're answering questions, Mr. Merwine, maybe you can answer another one. If you can, what has, and I tie this all to our function here, what has the PCCD, the commission, done to reduce the administrative cost of the constable program? Because looking at some of the things, like, I think there might be some things that the constable training program should be paying for. And I question, why are they paying for it? Like, how many people, do you know anything about, like, IT people? How many people, IT people work for the constable program?
We have a developer, so our set system that is out there.
Okay.
Eric is our developer.
How do we pick up that extra people? Do we? Aren't there other folks getting paid that, like, why the hell are we paying out of our budget? Mr. Merwin, did you answer that?
Well, I think John can answer this as well, because they're providing support to the infrastructure that's needed to run the constable's program. So the electronic equipment that we're recording on now, IT, somebody has to maintain it.
I understand that.
Those are all the people. They're not charging full time. They're all time sheeting. So when they work on specific activities,
So it's like a prorated thing.
not even prorated, it's time sheeted. So if they work an hour, they bill an hour. If they work 10 hours, they bill 10 hours.
And who monitors that to determine that that's an actual, I mean, they're really doing this for 10 hours for the constable.
Sure. We actually had this discussion probably a year and a half or so ago. I actually gave a presentation, PowerPoint slides showing all the different people that were billing to the program and what they were doing.
I don't want to repeat it, but I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking like, what the hell is all this?
So in the way the process works is staff employees as well as contractor staff that we have must submit a timesheet, which is then reviewed and approved by the supervisor. So they're just not seeing a bill that's being paid. It has to be reviewed and approved by the supervisor to basically agree that yes, they did perform these duties, they were working on these activities before anything was taking place.
Okay, well, the second part of the question, if you would, is anything being done in-house to reduce the administrative costs, if it's possible?
Yeah, that's an ongoing discussion. We're constantly looking to reorganize and make things more efficient as we can. We're certainly open to have other discussions about how we can be more operationally efficient.
I think, John, you've answered the question about the governor or the legislator where a surcharge decrease in your, or increase in your lengthy diatribe. Do you want to add anything else to that or not? No, really.
Chairman Relight,
Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir.
my question would be to Mr. Pop. Is it not true you're a civil service employee?
Correct.
Okay, and all your staff civil service employees?
Correct.
Do you not believe that probably part of it is there has to be a separation between civil service and the legislative branch? And truly it's incumbent on the constables, who are the persons that are directly involved in being trained. It's incumbent on them to take their issues to the General Assembly instead of the training board.
I mean, the board is required under the act to publish the annual report. It says the activities of the board. And again, we put in there that the fund is going down, that revenues are going down, all of the things we have done to try and reduce costs. And I can't tell you, I'm sure the legislature gets hundreds of annual reports regarding various programs around the state. I guess my issue is, and as I've said, is for constables to make their voice heard and say, hey, look at this. I don't think, and this is John Fowl speaking, not PCCD. In the 24 years I've dealt with this, and everyone here has experienced this. Every time there's a story of a bad constable in the paper, there's this big rush to eliminate constables, to fix the system. Nothing happens. And so I don't think that when our annual report goes out, I don't think they look at it. That's just my personal opinion. And that's why I've said to the constables, it's for you to have your voice heard, to bring their attention to it. I think the information has been provided. I just don't think there's been any, and staff here, we can't go down and lobby and say, hey, you guys need to do this. I mean, the only time we have is if we're summoned, to explain information or provide information. So I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I mean, what I didn't say in my intro was I served on the board from 2000 to 2003. I come back in November for for November's meeting to attend. I've been to a few meetings over the years, but the issues never change. Constables come in, they debate, we need this change, that change made legislatively, but truly that's not the function of the training board. The training board is to administer the program as it is presented and as we are lawfully allowed to do it. I always hear these questions, and I've heard it since I come back on the training board. I've been contacted by constables across the state. We need this kind of training, we need that kind of training. I understand that. I'll give you any kind of training in the world if you show me how to pay for it. But right now, financially, I don't see the ability to pay for even getting the judicial part of the thing done, which is the mission under 49, versus adding on anything else. I think that's where the separation has to be, and I think that the constable associations across the state and the county associations have to act as one voice. They have to bury their differences for the time being, be laser focused on getting the surcharge increased in order to finance the program, and then move forward with the legislative changes they need. Otherwise, we throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we go broke, if the fund is no longer operational, if the certification process is no longer operational, are we able to sell ourselves to the legislature that we're worthy having around without training?
Good point.
Very good point.
Okay, just two more things, John. I don't want to move on because we've got other things to do here. Has anybody given any consideration to, if the fund is not sold, what's the liability issue here? Where do we go? I mean, do we wait until that happens before somebody walks down to Harrisburg and knocks on the door and says, we need help?
And that day's gonna be on us very
It's coming
soon.
quick.
I mean, we can continue to cut, we can continue to reduce, but that just prolongs the problem. And that's why I say now's the time for you guys to have your voice heard. Because you're the ones directly impacted. And you're the ones that's gonna impact the most. And so I think the problem is if you get to that point, it's gonna be too late. I don't think anybody would consider, and even then, even if we got a increase today, even if it went to $10,
It's gonna take a while to.
it's gonna take time for that effect to be, because, we've looked at all the data on collections over the last year and AOPC, our surcharge gets assessed, and we looked at it, all 66 counties, and we selected 6 counties, and we presented this to the board, I don't know, a year ago, Sherry, or?
Yeah, probably last summer.
Yeah, and one of the things that sticks out the most is, there might be $180,000 in our training $5 surcharge that's assessed in a county in a year, but we may only get 40% of it that first year. The rest of it trickles in over a 4 or 5 year period. Because as you know, it gets assessed, but that person doesn't, that warrant doesn't get resolved or whatever for a year or whatever. So even if we get the $10 surcharge or any kind of increase, it's going to take time for the fund to feel it. In the meantime, we're still, incurring expenses, paying expenses, and so there's still going to be a very, very fiscally tight period that we would have to go through for that fund to start to get to a point where the board could, as Constable Westover said, look at training again and how it's presented or whatever. So we're at that point, I think, that even if we got it today, we wouldn't feel the effect for quite some time. So it has to be before we're at zero. I mean,
Okay, two last things and then I promise we'll move on. Are you aware, is anything going on to get the last 2 chairs filled here? We still have 2 vacancies, right?
correct. We have a court administrator and a constable vacancy.
Any movement on that?
Not that I took it.
But we know that the Office of Public Liaison, who makes the appointments, is aware of the vacancies and recommendations that have been provided in the past.
I'm just glad.
I mean, I'm happy that we got these because this has probably been a 3 or 4 year to get, these appointments.
Okay, and my last point would be to go right along with what you're saying and what Sherry just said. She's glad we have a forum. I don't know, unless there's something that prohibits it, given the dire straits that if we're not there, we're heading to. is there any reason why this board can't meet more than 4 times a year to try to work on getting this?
No, the requirement under the act is the board meets 4 times a year.
Okay.
They would all have to meet the Sunshine Act and be advertised.
No, I
et cetera.
understand all that.
Right. In fact, when the training program started, for the first year, we didn't have any, the act was passed, the board was meeting every month to try and get the program up and running.
And I'm not a person that likes to meet just to meet. I think you know that. And especially working with Penn State, they have a meeting to discuss what they're gonna have a meeting about. And then after the meeting, they have a meeting to discuss what they talked about at the meeting. And we don't wanna do that. I'm talking about a legitimate, okay, what are we doing to get this thing straightened out, right? Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to the board.
Very good. Well, with that, thank you and Mr. Merwine and Chair for chipping in here and answering these questions. Where are we going next?
So we need a
Well,
motion
yeah, so
to approve that, correct?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep, we need a motion to approve the fiscal report if there's no other questions or comments.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is instructor certifications, and I will start this real quickly here and then turn it over to Wayne. We had in the instructor policy on page, I refer to page 13, conditional approval of instructor certification. Per the Act 49 instructor policy, section 2, conditional approval, the Bureau Manager, John Falcon, conditionally approve instructors if there is a need represented by the school for those instructors. We had 5 instructors, because there were 2 DT instructors, defensive tactics instructors, that resigned from Penn State this year. They were in need of new instructors to help with their basic training class that started at the beginning of February. So John conditionally approved Laird Cole, Gerald Edgren, Ronald Haggerty, Marcus Cohan, and Jason Lucy to teach professional or physical skills as physical skills instructors for the classes listed. There were 4 Con Ed classes and a basic class. Those instructors then will be included in with our instructor certification that Wayne's going to go over. And before we get into those, we normally vote on all of the instructor certifications together as a group. But if any of the new board members feel that they would like to pull an instructor out and vote separately on him or her, at that time we can do that as well. But normally what we'll do is we'll just do a brief overview of that instructor, and then we'll ask the board to vote on all the instructors as a group. And then I'm going to turn it over to Wayne to go through the instructor certifications.
Yeah, the first one is Laird Cole for Penn State University Fayette, requesting physical skills. As you can see, he's currently a retired police officer. He's currently a constable. He has a master's degree from LaRoche College, 20 years of law enforcement experience, less than 1 year of instructional experience, but he did attend the CPCT instructor course as well as the Act 49 instructor development course in 2016. Staff would recommend that Laird will be certified in physical skills. The next one is Gerald Edgren, again with Penn State, for physical skills. He's currently with the U.S. Secret Service. He has a BA in criminal justice from Waynesburg University. 9 years experience, 4 years of instructional experience. He's current of Penn State constable program instructor. He successfully completed the program sponsored by PPCT in November of 2017. Staff would recommend that he be also accepted for physical skills. Next one is Ronald Haggerty. He's currently a magisterial district judge. He has an associate's degree from Westmoreland County Community College, 22 years of law enforcement experience, 4 years of instructional experience. He currently works for the Penn State Fayette Constable Program instructor in MOPEC. He also completed the PPCT in November of 2017. Staff would recommend Ronald Haggerty also for physical skills. The next one is Marcus Cohan. He's currently a Pennsylvania State Constable. He has a bachelor's degree from Kennedy Western University, 7 years of law enforcement experience, 5 years of instructional experience. He currently also teaches for Penn State Fayette, and he also successfully completed the PPCT instructor certification course in November of 2017. Staff would recommend Marcus Cohen for physical skills. The next one is John Lucy. He's currently working with the Washington County Sheriff's Department as a deputy. His education, he's Act 120. He completed the deputy sheriff's education course. He has attended California State University where he obtained his Act 120. He has 21 years of law enforcement experience, 4 years of instructional experience. Currently, he teaches at Penn State Fayette Constable Program. He also completed the PPCT instructor course in November of 2017. Again, staff would recommend board certification for John Lucy. The next one is Joseph Apirarchek. He's for requesting certification for physical skills. He's currently a PA State Trooper. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Administration of Justice from Penn State University, 10 years of law enforcement experience, 5 years of instructional experience. He currently works with Penn State Fayette Constable Training Program. He was also certified in November of 2017 in PPCT. Staff would recommend certification for Joseph Apirarchek. The next one is Christopher Rossano for physical skills. He's currently a Pennsylvania State Police firearms instructor. He graduated from high school as well as PSP Academy. He attended Laurel Highlands High School. He has 18 years experience, law enforcement experience, and 11 years as instructional experience. He currently teaches for Penn State Fayette Constables Program. He again completed in November of 2017 the PPCT instructor certification course.
Question before you recommend, if I may. Wayne?
Yes.
He's a current Pennsylvania State Police firearms. Does that mean he's a trooper or is he just employed as an instructor?
He's a trooper.
He's a
And
trooper.
it's in his day job, he's a
He's a trooper. Okay. Pardon me.
Okay. And staff would recommend certification for Christopher Rossano for physical skills. Next one is Michael Kelly. He's applying for general certification. He's currently a Pennsylvania State Constable. He has some college from HAC, 25 years law enforcement, 25 years in instructional experience. He last instruction was PSP firearms law. He is an NRA basic pistol and range safety officer. And the staff would recommend certification for Michael Kelly for the general topic certification. Jason Hall.
May I ask a question? What, the education of Mike Kelly, what, it says some college, does it mean he took some college courses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The next one is Jason Hall. He's requesting a firearms certification. This is for Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Currently, he works with DCNR as a chief. He's also a patrolman for Town PD. He has a bachelor's degree from Penn State University, 10 years of law enforcement experience, 8 years of instructional experience. He last instructional assignments were the Fireman's Annual Police Qualifications and the DCNR Annual Qualifications and Drills. He has a firearms instructor from PSP, certified as block armor, and staff would recommend Jason Hall for the firearms certification. The next one is Alexander Ferganis. He's also with IEP. He's requesting certification in communications, MOAB, as well as physical skills. He's currently a Pennsylvania State Constable, his high school degree from Lancaster Catholic, 12 years of law enforcement experience, as well as 3 years of instructional experience. He did his student teaching at the Act 49 instructor development. His other certifications, he has an NRA firearms handgun, shotgun instructor certification, as well as a 2016 Act 49 instructor development. The staff would recommend Alexander Ordanis for communication, specifically MOAB, as well as physical skills. The next one is John Foster for general and for firearms. This is at Temple University. Currently, he's a deputy sheriff for Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. He has a high school diploma from Kennedy Kendrick Catholic High School. He has 12 years of law enforcement, 4 years of instructional experience. His last instructional assignments were at the Montgomery County Sheriff's Firearms Taser class. His certification, he is a PSP firearms instructor, and staff would recommend John Foster for the general as well as the firearms. The last one from Temple University is John Leonard. He's requesting general communications and firearms certification. He's currently a constable. He has a master's degree from Misericordia University. He has 21 years of law enforcement experience, 5 of instructional. He has the Act 120 general instructor at Act 1 College, specialized instructor in physical training, Act 235, weapons training. He also has the Pennsylvania State Police Instructor Development Course, 40-hour handgun instructor development course with MOPAC. Staff would recommend John Leonard for the topics, general communications as well as firearms.
I make a motion to approve the certification.
All in favor?
Aye.
Constable Westover will abstain from that vote due to the fact that he currently teaches with Penn State University as an instructor.
And to further clarify that, I do not receive pay for teaching for Penn State
As a board member.
as a board member. Since I became a board member, I'm no longer paid a salary for teaching. I'm going to continue to teach because I want to keep my credentials up and I believe in the program. So I'm a pretty cheap date. And that cheap date's open also to IUP and Temple because I don't want to think that they're slighted either. So if they have an emergency call-off like Penn State had for this weekend, I'll make myself available. If there's any way I can physically get there in an allotted time to cover as an instructor, I will do that. And I will do that without pay. So anytime that Penn State votes for like instructors, that type of thing, the city abstains because of that.
Okay, that is all of our action items for the board meeting. We'll move on then to our discussion item, which I'm gonna turn it over to John for that.
What you see on page 26, of course, the board over the last couple meetings has discussed about what happens when the money, we get to a point where, lack of a better term, we can't pay our bills or we have to do something because the fund is still going down. So, just to summarize what you have in front of you is there's some courses of action that the staff worked on. And some of these, again, we didn't eliminate anything, but we also looked, if you go down through, you'll see there's some background information on the first page. And then on 27 and 28, there's some reality things, facts, constraints. We're constrained by the Act. We're constrained by what money we have at our disposal now, those kinds of things. And then we had to use some assumptions. So this was a staff process we went through to try and come up with some courses of action. I think, staff started this back in the fall, And I think the only issue is some of the things that we can present to you. They're not locked in concrete. If something in course action 1 makes sense and course action 2, we can put them together to make a third course action. This was done ahead of time to try and reduce the brainstorming in the middle of a board meeting. We're open to anything, but I also think some of these things we're starting to overcome by events. I think the financial situation is going to maybe happen a little sooner, because some of these things we talked about reducing contracts and all that kind of stuff. And as you know, with the state, that's not always the quickest process. So, and I'm just saying hypothetically, if, the board moved to, reduce the number of contracts and however they decide to divvy it up, and we had to go back through DGS and, there's a legal process we have to go through and all that. So it's not necessarily a fast solution. And that's my concern as we work through these over the last couple months. I think we're starting to be overcome by time. That maybe some of these might be the best solution, but we may or may not have the time to implement it. I don't want to, and we didn't take them out because of that. We want to present them. But I think as we're moving forward, the more we're looking at it, I think might be a great idea, but that might be a good idea for down the road if the fund gets fixed and we take that new approach, but it may not be the short-term solution, if that makes sense.
John, if I could just add to Commissioner Ruddick, you had actually requested at the August meeting of last year for, what is the plan? Is there a contingency plan? So that's when staff met, came together and tried to go through these courses of action, so we have something to present to you.
Yeah, I was sort of quiet at the beginning of discussion because I wanted to hear from our newest members of the board. I've been frustrated with this situation since I came on board, obviously. I've raised it a number of times. We got to get a handle on it. We did take, action to take a look at some of the ways we could cut some of our program initiatives. John did a nice job in presentation. When it came down to it, the only people that suffer are those who are going through the training because they lack the educational opportunity to excel. You start cutting ammunition in training programs, all you do is water down a program that you cannot water down. It just can't happen that way. And I think we were very, very cautious about doing something that just didn't pass the common sense test. It looks good on paper, but when it comes down to who is going to benefit, it would not benefit this organization whatsoever. So that doesn't relieve us, though, in that gap. That's the challenge we have. And the frustration is here. We want to make something happen to change that course of action. And I've spoken to a number of legislatures, and they frankly don't understand the significance of the issues we're dealing with right now. And I even hate to say this, but I think in some cases they're waiting to say, well, we'll wait until the problem exists. Well, the problem exists now. But this opportunity we put in place in August is simply to say, okay, if it does happen, what are the best options available to us to correct it as we move forward from that point? That's not the best way to operate. It's best to get in front of the issues, but that's very, very difficult because we are not a lobbying organization. We are a training organization, and we depend upon you, the constables, to go out there and knock on the doors to help us recognize that there is a funding shortfall. Let's face it, I'm a county commissioner. I respect, a military 37 years, so I respect every one of you in this audience. I know what you do. I know how important it is in your jobs to make sure you're properly trained. And I would never do anything that would jeopardize that process. But I do think we need to take on an administrative role more than an operational role to get in front of our legislative leaders and make them aware of the challenges we're facing. On a competitive nature, let's face it, the sheriffs, the deputy sheriffs in every county are in the courthouse every day. And in some cases, in some of the counties across the state of Pennsylvania, we all know that the sheriffs have taken a much broader role in their oversight. And in fact, The judges support that because on the funding side, they can control that funding feature. On the constable side, they support it in some of the areas of the state where there is a demand for constables. There are certain counties that really depend heavily on the constables. There are other counties that do not. And so you're not really supported by county numbers. You have to be supported by constable numbers. And I think that's really a challenge you as a group have to face and come on board with a strategy to make that happen. I'm sort of getting off my bench here as a member of this board, but that's the only way that you're going to get the funding strategies in place. Would it be helpful to meet with someone from the legislative group to talk to them and have them maybe present their ideas of how we can move forward? Maybe that's a kind of a round table we could have and maybe host here with some of the legislators come in and talk about their views on how they want to move forward, because we haven't done that. I think carefully we have to make sure that we don't step on our toes as a board in terms of what our mission is. And I think that's the balance that, John, you were mentioning. But anyway, that's my point, my views, and we've got to make something happen. I think we have a good opportunity to discuss some of these ideas in here in pros and cons. And maybe, is that what we're going to do today?
Right, I thought we would just go through them a little bit.
Excellent points, Commissioner. I want to state that, but I will say this. You make mention of the mission. We're not going to have a mission if we don't have the funding. The mission's going to be over. So we've got to get this. We've got to get in the right direction here, Mr. Fowle.
I agree. And like I said before, when staff has been working on these and putting them together, I think some of these, we just don't have the luxury of time. And if you look at course action 1, it basically talks about, where the act would be revised. Of course, obviously in there would be a, increase in the surcharge, maybe broaden what the board would consider for training and certifications, whether it's outside, certifications. The current act does allow that for training waivers if you're 120 under board policy 120, retired trooper within, I think, 2 years, et cetera. But again, for 24 years of 1,300 constables, that's any given year, that's maybe 50 guys. We administer a waiver test for somebody who's in that situation. How many law enforcement waivers tests did you get last year?
I was going to say between 5 and 10 in a year, maybe.
Right.
If we're lucky.
Right. So, and I'm not trying to, but that option's already there. But does the board broaden that and to other things or whatever? Allowing certain other qualifications to count towards continuing ed, et cetera. So then the other thing too is, other avenues. I know we used to allow non-constables to come to the basic training. They had to pay the full cost of the course, and that was people who were seeking election and wanted to get on the ballot or whatever. They wouldn't get certified until they were holding office or whatever. But early on, we had slots open in basic training, so the board would allow a non-constable to pay up front and attend the basic training. And then if down the road they present us with an election certificate or appointment order, then they would get certified, as long as they met all the other requirements. But again, all they were paying for, the cost that they would pay was for their slot in that course. I mean, it wasn't like we were making a lot of money. It was just covering the cost of that training seat. Of course, there's various things there that would be good. Pros, the cons. Like I said, I think the biggest one is time frame to complete. It's legislation, and as we know, that doesn't move at a fast pace. Course action 2 was talking about reducing the number of contracts, and just for everyone's knowledge, originally we had 6 contracts, 6 training regions, and Sherry, correct me, I want to say it was around 2010 or 2010.
2010, yep.
We went from 6 training providers down to 3 training providers. That really reduced our administrative costs. That was a large chunk that we were able to reduce. I think it helped extend the life of the fund a little bit at that point. We got a little more, economics out of that. whether the coordinator is setting up 10 con eds or 15 con eds, we're paying them the same. We're not paying for 2 coordinators doing 7 each, and all the administrative costs. That really made a big difference. So, we looked at, and we've looked at this before, how would we go down to maybe 2 contracts? And I'm just, hypothetical. One contractor takes care of all the con ed and firearms, another contractor just does basic training and whatever, some kind of split in those duties. I think that would save a lot. We eliminate one more contract, one more administrative cost and overhead. That would do a lot. Kind of the cons to that, that's going to hurt some customer service, lack of a better term for the constable. Is now you're training, you're maybe dealing with 2 different contractors in your region. You got to deal with contractor A for con ed and B for firearms. I mean, we try and structure it, but ultimately, at some point you're having to deal with 2 people, 2 schools instead of 1. But I think some of those issues can be worked through. I mean, that's just how it's set up. Again, more of a burden on constables. The other thing we talked about was centralized training. We have basically, you guys still see it administratively as 6 training regions. For us on staff, it's basically 3 training regions. Do we go down to, 3 training locations kind of centrally located in each region? Again, saves us a lot on administrative costs, etc. But now the burden's back on you as far as travel and time and expenditures. Again, it saved the board and the fund money, but there's a ripple effect to the constables who the training is for you. And don't take this the wrong way, but we want to have good customer service for the constables, but we also have to be realistic about what we can do or what we can afford.
The bottom line, what it costs.
Unfortunately, right. And so those are all things that those are the kind of ideas when we talk about reducing contracts. I don't think we could ever get down to 1 contract. I just think with the current number of trainings, with doing firearms and con ed and basic training, because I think the sheer volume on 1 contract would be inefficient. I think there would be a point where 1 contract wouldn't be able to handle it for a multitude of reasons. We talked about this, and this has been discussed over the years. Limits with requirements for constables to be trained. And I don't have hard numbers, but there's not a lot of full-time constables versus part-time. A large portion of the constables that work for the courts do it on a part-time basis. The full-time constables tend to be clustered around Pittsburgh, the Harrisburg area, suburbs outside of Philadelphia. So, and also too, we've done a lot to try and reduce constables. There are constables who take our training, who don't work for the courts, and aren't collecting that $5 surcharge. Is there a mechanism to say, only guys who are working for the court, because that's all we're training, is court duties. So,
If I could interrupt, has anybody ever given any consideration, in the 21 years that I've been involved in writing the curriculum and delivering the curriculum, there's always, in every single class that I've ever been involved in, there's always a certain amount of the population does strictly criminal work. And another part of the class does strictly civil work. And a third part of the class does a mix. We're looking for suggestions, we're looking for ideas. Has anybody ever thought, okay, can we just certify people in criminal work? Can we just certify people in civil work?
the board actually looked at that, and I don't remember, Craig, if that was during your tenure. It was in the early 2000s, I know. The board looked at that.
And I don't even know if that would say
Right.
much, but
Right.
that's what I'm looking at.
Right.
And we did a survey too, to try to find out what the constables, what work they were actually performing.
I remember doing that.
And I can tell you even the trend, the eastern half of the state tends to do more civil, and the western half of the state tends to do more criminal. I mean, they might still do a mix, but the board looked at that, but at the time, the board didn't want to create, lack of a better term, different classes of certified constables. They didn't want to say, You know, because you and I are a constable in the DJ sport, well, you only do criminal, and the board at that time, and again, the fund wasn't a huge issue at the point.
And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I don't know if it would have a significant impact, but if it would lower costs, is it something we could explore?
We can explore it. My only instinct, and I know one of the things our concern was at the time, not so much around the large population training areas. The south part of the state tends to have the higher training populations. The issue comes into, we struggle to have enough guys in a Con Ed in some of the northern tier counties to make it economically feasible to run that class. Now we split that class of 11 guys into 6 do civil and, the other guys do criminal.
And that's why I just did a little bit.
Right, yeah, and yeah, we can look at that. So then course action 4 is all the Con Ed's online, okay? And that's come up over the years, and that would eliminate any kind of hands-on training. If you're talking about costs, hands-on training, because it tends to be manpower intensive, there's more instructors, et cetera, it's time consuming. If you do the training online, of course you have to have a tool to deliver that, some kind of learning management system, because you want it connected to our training management system, because you want to make sure certified constables are the ones taking the training, not just anybody.
Do you have any numbers on that? You go to online, do you have any, what it would cost for a startup or anything?
The only thing I can give you, and this was several years ago, because the Deputy Sheriff Fund is kind of in the same boat, and that board is struggling with similar issues. We looked at, if the Deputy Sheriff, we actually started looking at it before their financial issues. Of course, they have a 19-week academy. One of the things they want to do is try how do we get more training out of that 19-week academy, because they can't add on to it. So we did look at a learning management system. We looked at Blackboard. And again, this is about 2013, 14 numbers. It was about $179,000 initial startup. Now that was for 2,300 deputies statewide, because it would be just basic as well as Con Ed, making it available for Con Ed. And then it was about $95,000 a year after that. We also went to Penn State main campus because they transitioned from Blackboard to Canvas, and had some initial conversations with them. Is how can we work the deputies in as just another Penn State, student? And at that point, Penn State would charge us, for X amount of deputies, they would charge a fee. And there's other things out there with online. Is you can do it online and you can do it cheaply, but then go back to Commissioner Ruddock's point is you lose quality. And so we could do online really cheap, but would it be sufficient? Would it be adequate training? And that's under the board. Well, and the integrity and the security pieces. So
Just a question. Our basic assumption that we started with, I think, fearfully, we may run out of funding in 2020, 21. That was what was building the assumption. And that's only 2 years away. Year and a half when you think about it. Have we put a cost of savings to each one of those recommended courses of action?
not these, and I'll tell you, Commissioner, because I started working on some other, because like I said, over the last, month and a half, realizing that we're kind of, I think that day of 2021 is going to be closer to 1920. And so currently I am crunching numbers and putting numbers to, so if we did this, it would save us, right, it would save us X amount of dollars.
I think we need to have that
Yeah.
as a first step strategy. I don't think it's a long step strategy. I think we have to preserve the integrity of our educational mission. The second piece is then to identify what we have done specifically to cut costs, and then put together a very, very aggressive letter to our legislators to indicate that if we are not able to fill this gap by this date, we will cease to operate as an educational institution for the Constables program. I have no idea who that goes to be perfectly honest.
And who would that letter come from?
And well, I think it would come from the board,
I think
Only
it has to
because
go,
the
it has to go to
educational
the,
mission is affected.
Commissioner would have to go to the, like, the Senate, majority leader and it would start with leadership.
I think that's who it would have to go to.
Yes.
I feel that we have the right to do that if we are going to close out our educational mission. They need to know that, because it's not the constables that are affected, it's really the citizens of Pennsylvania who are affected. And I think that's what we're trying to make an adjustment to get us in the right direction, so
Commissioner, I'll tell you, the one reason we didn't work on numbers to this is because, first, to be honest, I wanted to float any of these ideas out here to get the board's input, because I don't want to focus the staff's time on 10,000 things when really only 3 or 4 is what the board is interested in or is looking at. And then we can put numbers to these issues and say, if you do A and B and E, it'll save you X amount of dollars.
because there are significant savings that need to be generated.
If you look at the projections, it shows that, revenues about 1.7, expenditures about 2.4. So there's about a $750,000 difference there that we would have to reduce. And we have reduced over the last years, we have cut as much as we can. We can cut more things, but that's only gonna get us $10,000 a year,
I know.
$20,000 there.
And that's what we've already been doing.
And that's what we've been doing. And that's, at this point, it's not enough.
Going back to Beth's report, it showed that we are in deficit by about $1.8 million over the course of this funding year. Is that pretty accurate, Beth?
Are you looking at the projection?
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the balance of our revenues and expenditures that show a difference of about $2.75 million.
He's looking at the fiscal report.
The fiscal. Yeah.
And as John mentioned, or when he was sharing, we do have some commitments out there that are affecting this.
I understand.
And also, we have some commitments that go forward that aren't related to this current fiscal year. So that kind of skews it a little bit.
And that's the one thing, Commissioner, we have to show, so if we have a 2-year contract, we're showing that full 2 years.
Yeah, that's what
And we have to show, that's not our rule, that's comptroller, and so, if at the end of that contract, if there's money left over, $100,000, $50,000, that comes back, but it doesn't reflect on here until that contract's closed, so.
Well, I think you have to take your best, not guess, but best informed decision as to where we are and at what point is this going to come up to a zero balance based upon those projections.
And I think, Commissioner, there's a dollar amount prior to zero, because we would hit that and, we still have commitments, and invoices that we'd be paying, we get to a point where we can't afford any incurring new costs.
So your best projection right now as to when we go insolvent is when?
If you look on page 12, this is really where kind of the rubber meets the road from the expense versus when your kind of discussion is it committed or is it really expended. This is a report that shows what was actually expended, what actually came in each of those fiscal years. And then you can see the projections. And really in fiscal year 1920 is where we're down to $500,000 plus or minus in the account. It's really before that, as John indicated, we won't be able to engage in $1 million contract if that's all the money we have in the account. So collectively, we obviously need to address that because we can't the balance is zero. We can't allow it to get to zero. We can't allow it to run.
Well, I have to agree with Chairman Berletti. If it takes additional meetings by this board in order to keep a close handle on where we real-time financials, because the problem is with a quarterly meeting, real-time financially can change dramatically. And I think we need to keep a pretty close thumb to where we're, in reality, where we're at. And the actions like the Commissioner suggested, with a letter from the board, the various, the majority leader, whoever, I think that real time, we're gonna have to keep a better track in going going down to this last year. I mean, so it sounds to me like by next year, we have to have this thing resolved one way or another.
And I think that would lead to decisions this year.
Yes.
Because the impact is next year.
And I did talk to our executive director about a letter to the legislators and he's willing to have the letter come from the chairman of the commission, once we can kind of clearly articulate what these cost reductions are that we're looking to do and what the impact is.
Let's get them articulated and get it going. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and that's what I think we have to go through courses of action. Okay, if we do this, we can save $400,000, $10,000, whatever it is.
You're working on getting some actual,
Dollar amounts.
And then,
well, we're not holding your feet to the fire, but it's gonna be close. Guesses, good guesses.
Right, I mean, we, you know, the numbers I've already been working on are based on, because we have these dollars committed contractually. So I go off based off those budgets for each one of those contracts. And also historical. We know the Con Ed class, 25 guys, runs us anywhere between $5,000 to $5,500. And so, and we've, again, that cost is, we've gotten to a bare minimum on that cost. So yes, we have basic costs for a lot of these classes we conduct, how much it costs us, et cetera. We have good historical numbers as well as what's budgeted for that. So.
Yeah, could I, Mr. Chairman, I was just gonna ask a question, if there's a possibility, could we, given the recommendation of legal counsel to prepare a letter as described with the action plans that we have taken to minimize burden of cost, what we see as the future of need. If that letter were to be prepared with all that background information, it would be good for this committee to sit down and review that letter before it's actually submitted. That would be maybe a good time for us to reconnect as a group. And I mean, I would recommend that. I put it into some sort of a motion if you need that, but maybe we just need to move forward with something like that.
first, I want to clarify, I'm not legal counsel.
You're good enough.
Legal counsel sits over here.
She hasn't poked you.
She sits next to you.
the direction of your eyes, it's like,
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, not legal counsel, I'm an office director for the agency.
Okay.
This is one of the units within my office. So I agree that we do want that letter to be reviewed by this body that goes up. But just one clarification, we need to identify these things. We're not just talking about the things that we've done in the past, that information has been routed up there already. We need to talk very concretely about it. To get down to, if you look at our revenue, we're bringing in 1.7 to 1.8 million. To get down to that number so that we don't go bankrupt, what actions do we have to take to get there, and what is the implications of that? So if we're going to reduce Con Ed, what is the implications for the constable community of doing that? If we're going to reduce firearms training, what is the implication? We need that. That's the information that we need to put into this letter to get to the legislature, because that's what's going to
Will there be an act, a request, an act of support to the legislative team as to what we would ask of them as part of this letter as well? I mean, unless there's an ask, sometimes they don't read it. Just,
Or they give a solution that doesn't resolve.
well, yeah, there's got to be some way for them to say, look, this is what we can do, or rekindle our resources and take a look. You know, the surcharge, does that require legislative engagement?
Yes, that's it, yeah.
Okay, then we need to know how quickly they can do that. So, I mean, if that's what their request is.
I guess, can I add this? I'm curious, how many here today are constables? Okay. So how many of you, show of hands, have talked directly to your state senator or your state representative about this funding issue? Okay. How recently? Last year?
Last month.
Last week.
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Week ago.
So I met with my state senator in January, and fortunately knowing him from the very beginning of his career, he's been down in Harrisburg for a long time. So he's street savvy as to how things work. So having that meeting with him, what I found out was, face-to-face, 1 hour, uninterrupted by staff or anybody, I found out that he truly doesn't know the financial crisis. As a sitting state senator, he did not appreciate until after this meeting was over how close we are coming to insolvency. I asked him, I was very frank with him because being a personal friend, I can ask these kind of questions. I said, is there the will by the Senate to continue to have constables operate in Pennsylvania? He said, I can't answer that. He said, I can tell you that there are people in the legislature that, yeah, probably would be willing to eliminate constables. But he said, the vast majority, I feel, are on the fence. He said, really, they need to be educated as to what's going on. And they really need to know what the value of the constables are to their system. For them to continue to fund, doing a surcharge increase or doing a change of law, they really need to educate on that part. So the letter, what I'm looking for, is going to also be an educational tool to those sitting state senators and representatives that here's the value of what the constables are for the system. That, without the constables, here's what you have. With the constables, this is what they can bring to the table. And I think that has to be part of the conversation.
Okay, and to follow it up, constable Pikes has a word.
I agree with Member Westover. I've been a long time advocate of getting the public involved, educating the public, educating them to the point where constables save them money. You pay your own insurance, you pay your own expenses, your own car maintenance. No pension versus deputy sheriffs who, they get a pension, they get vacation time. We don't get that. And I think if we encourage the public and educated them, we could get them to send letters off. I mean, the board here, we could send a letter off and it might hit the file can. But if we get people calling our legislator saying, hey, you know what, these guys really do a good job and they save us money. I think that would be part of it.
Sure.
So staff has some work to do before the next meeting. I'm assuming that we will try to pull something together before the May meeting, maybe with the
I'll
current
cut the
board.
executive session, we'll talk about possibly a meeting before.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we, as discussed, we put dollar figures together, with a letter is drafted, and as the Commissioner said, and then once we have a draft letter, then we can talk about scheduling if the board wants to meet to review that and discuss it or whatever. So it obviously be before the May.
And just to follow up what I said, so as of January 12th of 18, there's 1,594 registered constable, deputy constables that are actually even registered on the system to use. If there was a standard letter or a standard postcard that every constable and deputy constable in the state sent, not just to their senator or representative, to all of them, because that's how these lobbying campaigns work. You have to show sheer numbers. That's what it has to be. I think that's incumbent on the organizations, the counties themselves, and each constable is involved in this program to say, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's get this standardized letter, postcard, whatever, and let's do a mail campaign to the legislature in order to correct this problem. Because we can send a letter here, we can do the education here, but we really need the impact of those 1,594 people or whoever to do that. I think that has to be the commitment that each constable makes going away from this meeting today is I'm going to get actively involved in what I got to do financially to fix this system so we're viable and the legislature will keep us around.
And when you're talking to these people, it's not only the constables, but the public. When you emphasize the fact that, hey, if they abolish constables, or if this thing goes under, okay, it's going to increase your taxes because somebody has to do it. It'll be the deputy sheriffs. And again, we go back to the pensions and all the money we save people.
May I follow up, Mr. Chair, just to.
Please.
I think we're missing another piece of the decisionary process here. We have now a new chairman who's a judge. If this came to the attention of the county commissioners in each of the counties of Pennsylvania, the first person they're going to go to ask whether indeed we need to have these constables, the president judge. That's going to dictate in a lot of ways how we do business.
That's who's put them out of business in 2 counties so far.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So just be aware that there is another ingredient that needs to be addressed. I don't know how we do that.
That's above my pay grade there, General. It's common police court. I'm just,
It's, I think that's a big issue for us too.
Okay, then, I was just gonna say if we're finished with that discussion, we'll move on then
please.
to the information items. Tracy, would you please report on those?
Status of certification, as of January 12, 2018, there were 1,202 constables and deputy constables currently listed as active and certified. Of these, 654, or 79%, were also certified to carry a firearm in the
Mathematically impossible.
of their constable duties.
It is.
We'll take public voice when we're finished.
Since the inception of the Constable's Training Program in 1996, there have been a total of 4,503 individuals who successfully completed basic training for the waiver examination and were certified by the board. The next informational item is the Constable Certification Education Training System, CETS, registered user update. Again, as of January 12, 2018, there are 1,594 active registered constables and deputy constables who are CETS users. These are constables and deputy constables who have a valid term of office in CETS either by appointment order or election. A total of 1,140 active and certified constables and deputy constables are CETS users, which is 95% of the currently active and certified constable population. Active and certified indicates that they have a valid term of office, have professional liability, and have met the training requirements to be certified. Of the total active registered CETS users, 1,104 have chosen email as the preferred correspondence method, and 494 active registered constables and deputy constables are sharing their personal information in CETS. There are currently 58 registered users from 31 county clerk of courts offices.
Do we know the breakout between constables versus deputy constables?
We do have that designation in our system, but if that's a number, we can definitely generate that number for you.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm curious to see what that ratio is.
Okay, sure, I see on the agenda, we have an executive session, but John says we're not going to.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything for executive
Okay,
session.
so then we're going to be going directly to the group at large, correct?
Yep, we can start public voice. We just ask that before you speak that you state your name and what county you're from.
And before they do that, I would like to say, I'm very pleased to see these constables here. I wish there were like 4 more rows, or maybe use the auditorium in that, what the heck they call them, the Capitol Museum or something. Fill it up. I'd like to see that. But with that said, I think Sherry just asked that you stand, identify yourself for the record, because we are on the record, and say your piece.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Ian Castanera. I'm a constable and also the legislative director for the Pennsylvania Fraternal Order of Constables. I meet with legislators and senators on a daily basis, almost 3 to 4 times a week because of legislation that we are trying to move. There's 2 issues I would like to address. Trust me, there's a lot more. I could be here all day, but the point is I'll try to keep it brief. One has to do with the increase in CETA fees, and the second has to do with the instructor leave that needs to be removed. The first is the CETA fees. What we would like to see is, as a businessman, I know that the devil's in the details. We would like to see an accounting, not just the budget that is put out with general comments on it, but we'd like to see a dollar-by-dollar breakdown of where the money's been spent over the last 10 years. We don't necessarily, and this is no offense to you, but we don't necessarily believe that these dollars are being spent efficiently or effectively. I wasn't going to go over the parts that you had mentioned on here for your recommendations, but one part I am going to be because I had a hard time keeping my mouth shut, to be honest. It has to do with the reference of part-time or full-time constables. The reason for this, and the reason that a lot of them are part-time, is because they have no other choice but to be part-time. The fact is with the system the way that it's set up, allowing judges to choose their own constables, which is the only elected office that is not one person can override the will of the voters. The fact is only a small percentage of constables are given work. There's 2 million, this is an AOPC number, nearly 2 million unserved warrants in Pennsylvania, with a value of nearly $350 to $400 million in unrealized revenue. If constables were allowed to do their job as they were elected to do, and if they were given the tools to serve the warrants more effectively and efficiently, this money would be generated much more for constables and for training and so on. Right now, constables are handcuffed, blindfolded, and are not allowed to do their job the way that they're supposed to do their job. I'm not going to say any more about that at the moment, but we would like to see an accounting. Is that available to us that we can see where a dollar-by-dollar breakdown is of expenses over the last 10 years? That's a question I asked.
I would imagine that would take some time, and I'm sure it can be done, but it will take some time to do it, right, John? Mr. Irwine?
Well, a lot of the information is actually currently available on the Treasury.
It's probably already been published,
Right, that's what I said.
once or twice or 3 times, right?
That exact breakdowns or just general topics of budget?
That and on PenWatch, there's actually contracts, and then the checks that were distributed previously, it's on PenWatch, right? So the checks that were written for services are every one line item up there.
If I could, before I leave, then if I could get a direction on how I can get to that, I'd appreciate it.
www.penwatch.pa.gov.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm not going to address any more issues on that. The second issue I have today is specifically in reference to Instructor Haggerty, who is a magistrate and instructor for PCCB. It's come to our attention because we have constables that come to us in reference to things that happen in training classes, and they're afraid to speak up on their own because of retribution. Constable Haggerty, a little while back, about a month or so ago.
Constable Haggerty or Judge Haggerty?
Constable Haggerty, Magistrate Haggerty. Had brought up the fact it was brought to our attention that not only was he misrepresenting what constables were, but he was also speaking specifically against our organization, as well as the legislation that we are trying to move, which, by the way, does increase CETA fees with some restrictions and accountability issues that we've added in there, but we do increase the CETA fees at $10 per file. I contacted Magistrate Haggerty, and I sent him a letter regarding the rules and the statutes and the case law and so forth, backing up our statements and what we were saying that he was in error about. And we also indicated that we would prefer that he would not, in a personal conversation I had as a follow-up, prefer that he would not bash the PAFOC or our legislation, the class. It is not his job to do that, and it is not his job to misrepresent law. He said that he passed that letter on to the Harrisburg offices, and that it was going to be discussed today in the meetings. I'm not sure if it was, because obviously.
You aware of that, John? I've not,
not
PCCB
seen
has
that.
not seen that letter, the letter that was sent to Haggerty or anything.
That's curious, because he specifically told me on the phone that he passed that letter forward. Well, since that time, we have been notified twice in both basic and another class that he was continuing to specifically bash the PAFOC and continually specifically misrepresenting the law regarding the constables. This is unacceptable. The instructors are not there to put out forth their personal opinions or to choose one organization over the other or to misrepresent the law. Just in case that Magistrate Haggerty was not telling me the truth, I have brought a copy of the letter that was sent to him, and it was sent to him on January 14th. I'd be more than happy to give that to the commissioner before I leave. But we do not expect instructors to be imparting their personal opinions. They're supposed to stick to the
Prescribed curriculum.
correct. And we have problems with the prescribed curriculum, because, for instance, when I was just recently in recertification, there were a number of things that were in there that were incorrect. And when I brought them up in reference to law, for instance, posting case law on there that is incorrect. In other words, posting superior court law when Supreme Court has made a ruling. Superior Court case law is no longer effective once the Supreme Court speaks on the case. So the book puts forth things that are inaccurate and incorrect. Yet when we say things, we're told, well, that's the curriculum, we have to teach it. We don't accept that. If you're going to do the instruction, it needs to be proper and it needs to be accurate. And we as an organization stand behind getting good quality training. And we believe we have many suggestions that can help to cut costs. We've never been asked, but we can we have many ways that we believe can help to do that. If you want to find some ways or find what the constables have the different organizations sit down in a round table and talk about what are your ideas to cut costs or to improve training for constables, because we're the ones out in the street, we're the ones putting our lives in danger, we're the ones that need to have the training, and we're the ones that are concerned about
Can I
this.
interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
I think you just made a very good point. We've sat here all morning talking about what you have to do, what you have to do, and what we gotta do. We didn't say, let's bring these people in and sit down with them in a discussion. And that's something we are going to do. We talked about instead of meeting quarterly, Craig, I think we need a meeting to sit down with responsible, reasonable people, because I'm not gonna listen to crazy nonsense. There's nobody here from Allegheny County, I guess. I've been quite colorful with my years on the bench. Not to the point where I had to go for any conduct board investigations or what have you, but I'm willing to listen to anything that's reasonable, and I think that is a very good point. We're gonna follow up.
I have no problem with roundtable discussion. I think that's a very, very valid point.
We have different organizations here.
Yeah,
I know we're outspoken.
I don't have a problem with it. And to your point earlier about the instructor, I agree. And the board has removed instructors for doing things in the classroom they're not supposed to.
But this is the first I've heard of it.
Well, and that's one thing I will raise is that we've had a training grievance out there.
No, what I did was I directed him directly to try to deal with it without getting, because I thought maybe the instructor didn't understand what the issue was. I didn't want to cause a problem, and we as an organization didn't want to cause a problem unless there was a specific issue that we needed to
But
address.
the proper protocol should be to file a training agreement with the program.
We
We're planning on doing that if we got no action from that point. He told me.
But that's where it has to start.
Then it has to start
We
there.
can't
We
leap
can't
over
fix something
everything
we don't
to get
know
to here, yeah.
I understand that. The point was, when I went to him and I sent the letter, I addressed him directly. I called his office and spoke to me directly. He said that he had sent it on to the board here, so I assumed that it was being discussed and that something was being handled. Obviously, that's not the case. That's the reason I brought the letter, just in case, and if I didn't get the proper answer today, we were going to file.
Quiet.
So we will.
Mr. Mellors, do you know anything about this?
No, I did not.
Okay. There's the head of the Southwestern Training. Like you're giving us something new here.
I understand, sir, but
Again, we can't jump over.
wasn't.
There's a procedure to follow. You'll take your steps to follow that,
That's correct.
and it will work its way up to these people, and we'll make a decision. Am I right there, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm good with that. In fact, I want to extend, Mike, does your organization get a chance to discuss some of your thoughts from a school perspective?
Yeah, we had a meeting earlier this year with the PCCD staff,
Okay,
and we
you
were
did.
looking for the future, and we showed things that we had cost that is within our realm.
Okay.
And
I just want to round everyone that has some impact on this
Mike
decision
Martino.
process.
So the point is that we are more than willing to sit down and share objects, and I'm sure John Weiser and his organization are as well. I'm not sure about the PSCA, I don't know if there's any representation.
There is.
Mr. Empink is here. So the point is that I know we have different ideas and different agreements, but if we at least all present them, we can look at them.
Sometimes you can get to a solution by taking a look at all those different agreements or disagreements and agreements and what have you. Sometimes you can get to the solution.
I don't know, sir.
Isn't that what we want to do? Get to the solution,
I
right?
hope so.
Ultimately.
Unfortunately, we're not. The speech you delivered earlier would work really well in that. Well, I don't know if it would work, but it would sound really good in that conduct.
Well, I speak, we are working heavily on this, on our legislation. We believe we have a lot of good ideas, including requiring judges to use their elected constables first, and then allowing those, after a certain period of time, allowing them to go in the system and having all constables have access to those.
Okay.
those
Very good. I don't want to use an egg timer on you, but sit down.
That's not a problem.
Next up, who's up? Stand up. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name's Deputy Constable Welsh out of Columbia County. Part of the problem I've seen with constables is honestly, like I believe the commissioner brought up, it's a county-wide issue. I know most of you guys from Commonwealth are probably all Adams County, Dauphin County down that way. I know there's a lot of guys down south that work their butts off for the state, and that money's coming in. One of the questions I have is in the counties that are not using the constables, that surcharge doesn't exist, correct? They only get that surcharge if the constables are utilized rather than the
If the
sheriff's
work's,
department.
when the work's assigned to a constable,
Yeah.
the surcharge.
Surcharges and stuff.
So, yeah, you're getting nothing from at least 3 Northeast counties. Right there, I know in my borough alone, the local police department is actually putting out on their Facebook page. They have one person with 28 active warrants. They're doing absolutely nothing about him. They're more concerned about bicycle helmets on kids and ticketing low-income families for that. I mean, that's besides the point, but if we're using constables to go utilize those warrants, those civil services, all that, there's your revenue for the next 6 years. So maybe we need to look at it. I mean, honestly, the constables need to start making more of a push to legislation like we've gone over. But maybe we do need to look at it. How do we increase that revenue? It's already there. We just need to use us.
You're preaching to the choir.
And I understand that. I think it's just as a whole, everybody in this room, we need to figure out what we need to do to get our work back.
Exactly right. As the commissioner eloquently delivered his presentation, and Constable Westover and everybody sitting up there, you folks are a very big part of this. Not the problem, the solution, hopefully.
The other thing too, I know a lot of constables sit here all the time. We were just discussing it, and I agree with you. Where does all the money go? With every breakdown in training, because I know in training they not only hand us a CD, they hand us a book that thick, they hand us about 3 reams of paper, as well as the instructor material. Plus, we're all taking notes alone. You could get rid of civil and criminal process in the class, put it online. Okay. Most of these guys, like I was a former CID agent with the U.S. Army. I came into being a constable with my OCAT, my MOAB, my MEB, all of that, yet PCCD won't let me not take that portion of the class. So that right there is $1,000 a weekend for students that most of these guys are coming either out of the military, out of another, not necessarily out of
but those are things that we are going to be looking at.
And I just did you just recently go through basic?
I was actually a CID agent up until like 3 years ago.
I'm talking about the constable.
Oh yeah, my Act 49. I'm currently in my Act 49
Right.
training as a constable.
The OCAT, and I will tell you, there's a large portion of the population. We've done demographic surveys. Right now, there's probably less than 30% of the guys come into this with prior experience alone. That's why we put OCAT and MEB in the basic, because a lot of guys don't get it. And that's why it's optional right now. In fact, one of the things we've tried to do is get rid of the optional training, because most guys take it on their own or with a local department or whatever. And to date, and I'm not blaming the board, but the board has chosen not to eliminate those optional classes.
Yeah, I agree, sir. I mean, just the biggest thing is we really need to look at online. I mean, I hear it all the time from constables in our county, everywhere else. Con Ed, I mean, I have to take a lot of federal level and a lot of FEMA level classes for other organizations I work for, and most of our classes are online. I mean, so it's something to definitely consider. And then one more point I have is actually with Instructor Haggerty. I had emailed the person who was my coordinator. My entire class is scared to say something about this guy. At lunchtime, he honestly runs his mouth at lunchtime. Against constable organizations, he runs his mouth against constables. The entire class against Judge Haggerty has an issue.
We get the point.
Yeah, they're terrified to say something, to be honest.
We get the point. We got somebody that's going to be following up with that.
Yeah, Roger.
So that we can, it will get to us and we can take a look at it. Thank you for your input, and very well presented. Who's up next?
I'll back in there.
Oh, but you've been waiting.
Hello there.
Bad knee.
Constable Thomas M. Pink, President of the Pennsylvania State Constable Association. Good morning.
Good morning.
I recently remembered that approximately a year ago, back in May of 2017, House Bill 1434, Apprentice number 1827, was introduced to the House Judiciary Committee. This bill had 2 articles in it. One is ineligibility to be a constable if you were convicted of a felony or had a felony record or a case pending. The second one was a surcharge increase from $5 to $9. At this time, seeing the plight of our funding, this bill was introduced by Senator Calderon in Berks County, who I happen to know personally, and I called Representative Calderon up and had a chat with him. I said, are you interested in moving this bill? As it lied dormant before the House Judiciary Committee. And he said, what about you? You're the constable. You want it? I said, hell yes. I said, what can we do together maybe to get this legislation moving to get an increase in the surcharge?
He said he would do work on his end, but I had a promise to work on my end. And he suggested I contact Ron Marcico, Chair of House Judiciary, along with the entire members of the committee, which I did. I sent a letter to all of them, encouraging the movement of this bill. What's going to happen? I don't know. That only happened this week early. So we'll see if there's any action on it.
Well, let's hope it's turns out.
Trying anyway, that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you give us that House bill number again?
What?
Could you give us that House bill number again?
1434.
You had
Thank you.
1434 approved 1827.
Were those reintroduced in this session? Yes.
This is May 24th, 2017.
Yes.
I mean, in the new session, just, you know.
This is the most current, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I spoke to Calderon 2 days ago, and like I say, it was his bill, and it's the only thing landed in the House Judiciary. He contacted the House Judiciary Legal Counsel, and he said it's there, all it needs to be is introduced, worked on, and a pep talk, I guess, to go up and get it moving.
Yeah, maybe they can work on it and bump it up more than $9, but at least.
You know, if you want to do it, fine. I mean, the future of the system and training lies with funding, I do believe, even though how we spend it is another story. We need the money to fund. So I would ask that everybody get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think go ahead. This is like mushrooms or something. One guy has his hand up, and then when you look over again, 3 guys have their hands up.
You saying I'm short and stout? What the hell's he getting at?
I'm John Weiser, I'm the president of CCA. So, I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? Like,
What is CCA?
Commonwealth Constable Association.
Okay.
So, we talk about this all the time about how broke we are, and let's just cut the crap. There are 3 leaders in here from 3 statewide organizations. 1434 is a great idea. It needs a little bit of work. We worked real good with Senator Raffenscheller and Alloway's office, and we said, look, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. 1434 raises the fee. Last week we sent a memo over asking them to raise it to 10 and issue it every time a warrant's issued, not just once. How many times do we all get warrants issued 3-4 times on the same guy? Why is he only paying it one time? So, I just want to go on the record as the leadership of the 3 organizations, we need to come together, put our differences aside, and we all have some differences. And Tom raises a very valid point. If the 3 of us, you guys say about, it's us. So, well, then that's fine. So us get together and let's get the fee raised. Now, I know there is some from another organization that would prefer to see some limitations on how it's spent and things like that. Our opinion is you got to get the money in the coffers first, and then we can work all that other stuff out. Okay, if there's no money in the coffers, it really doesn't matter how the hell it's spent because there's nothing there.
No,
let's just be honest.
Very
Right?
well spoken.
So let's just kind of cut the crap and let's get together and just get it done.
Thank you. You're next up.
Who's the next mushroom?
All right.
I'm Sean Vincent, Constable in Lancaster County, former president of Lancaster County Constable Association. Just 2 quick things. You guys talked about like putting a letter out or something like that. Lancaster County is one of the counties that lost the warrants. I became president to try and fix that. I got some movement in the right direction, but when I met with the commissioners, I said how I came to the PCCD meeting, and Lancaster County is one of the bigger counties for serving warrants, and how us not serving the warrants has statewide ramifications. And they didn't believe it. Quite frankly, they said, if that's the case, why didn't they hear it from you? You guys are the gatekeepers. They appreciate hearing it from me, but you guys are responsible for that money. You guys are responsible for providing the education.
We're responsible for providing training.
Right.
We're not responsible to go down the street and beg for money. We're getting ourselves put in that position.
Right.
But we're here to provide the training. We're not here to talk to the Lancaster County.
What I'm getting at is they want to hearing it from us is good, and I agree. We need to put letters out. We need to do things, but they want to hear it from somebody more official than just the Lancaster County Constables.
They want to hear it when they hear.
I've invited them, but I'll be honest, they don't care because they look at the sheriff's department and say, "Nah, we'll give it to them." That's because that's what happened. Just like you guys say, because I was involved in it when they went to the president judge. They said, "President Judge, the Lancaster County Constables have an unlimited checkbook with us. We're spending $1.9 billion to pay out constables because we were good at what we did. We served a ton of warrants. They didn't take into consider what we brought The money they brought in.
Million.
Million.
Sorry.
That's about money. They're gonna be tapping into your fund.
But they said, why are we using these guys when we can use the sheriffs who are salary?
I sit right next to Westmoreland County. Allegheny County's right up against Westmoreland County. And what was it, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, the president judge flipped because two constables, a husband and wife team, got arrested for triple billing. And the edict went out, constables can't do no criminal work, right? It's not working out for them.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work out for Lancaster County either, or Lancaster, or however.
Convincing them that is our problem.
The numbers to try to
Us convincing them that is the problem, and they want to hear
That
from
only works so
somebody.
long. I think you know that. You can only crunch them to make it look like
Yeah,
that.
they're crunching the numbers.
And it's not working in Westmoreland County anymore. In fact, we've heard there may be some movement on that.
What I'm getting at is when I talk to the county commissioners, they want to hear somebody more official than just
Okay, we
us.
understand. We know exactly what you're getting at. We understand your frustration. But those people, they're giving you lip service. So they were interested in being at this meeting today.
Yeah, it's the same old. They've got 10, 20 other meetings that are at that directing them directly in Lancaster County when they feel they fix that problem.
You gotta also educate the public that going away with constables and running these constables versus sheriffs is costing them money, taxpayer money. And that's what you gotta emphasize. You gotta train the public or teach the public that you can save them money. They don't know what a constable does. How many people really know what a constable is?
Yeah, we've had that.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one more quick thing, then I'm done. I really think we do need to look at moving toward the online. I mean, I've done a ton of online education with Texas Tech. I mean, it says right there how many hours you got to do. You can control that. I mean, quite frankly, I feel like defensive tactics and firearms should be the only time we're coming out and doing the hands-on stuff needs to be. And I think
We
I don't
agree.
feel
That's why this
yeah.
board is going to be looking at those types of options.
Because I
We're
just
not
don't feel
promising
so.
anything yet, but we got to at least take a look at it.
Yeah.
But thank you. We got a couple more people. We're not going to keep taking questions till 5 o'clock, but go ahead.
Greg Smith, Franklin County, and I think you just touched on it. You mentioned you don't want to compromise training with the continuing ed by going all online, but we can do defensive tactics as a one-day block and do the rest of it online. We can do a hybrid.
Good point. It's a very good point. Who? Somebody over here. Yeah, you.
Jack Garner, Dauphin County, former constable advocate now. 2 points of information.
Jack, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
How does somebody get to be a constable advocate?
Somebody that goes ahead and wants to see constables progress to the point that they are no longer treated like the poor stepchildren that they are in Pennsylvania law enforcement.
Good. So please.
Point of information to Tracy. Mathematically, 654 number of constables who are firearm certified out of 1202 is mathematically impossible. Are you sure it's not 954, which would be 79%?
I would have to look at that. It might have been a typo.
Well, but you agree 654 is closer to 50%.
Yeah.
Second point of information, if I may. Mr. Merlin, sorry to interrupt you there.
No problem.
Counsel. Kristen Kenyon, what is her position here?
Kirsten Penn, she is the director of the Office of Research and Child Advocacy. She is also the legislative liaison for the agency.
Thank you, sir. Legislative liaison. You do have somebody that can go to the State House, to the General Assembly, to the Senate, and go ahead and ask for legislative things that this agency needs. Am I correct, sir?
You're close to correct on that. We are part of the governor's jurisdiction. We are part of the executive offices. So any interface that we're having with the legislators, we need to coordinate through our contacts within the governor's office. But yes, she does, and she has met with legislators in the past as well as our executive.
So there is the possibility that that can be done through a staff person that we're already paying $322 out of this fund for the last quarter, according to your records. Another point of information. When information comes in...
that time card.
Correct. when information comes in about a constable's insurance, who enters that into the system?
It depends on how, if it's entered in, but the county has access to the system. They can enter it directly into the system and then it's approved by staff.
If it comes here?
If it comes here, it's either faxed or emailed to our fax machine or directly to staff. And then that staff person would enter that information.
What
into the
staff
system.
person enters it?
All three, myself, Tracy, and Wayne.
So in other words, and I'm not trying to pick on you, but your salary is roughly $80,000 a year. We're paying somebody $80,000 a year to do simple secretarial clerical entry work that we should be paying somebody much less.
That's absolutely wrong. This woman does not make her, well, I don't know what her salary is, but she doesn't earn it sitting being a data entry person.
Can I address this?
Exactly, she's an administrator, we should have somebody else doing that. And we can reduce our costs by being more business-like and cost-effective, not corporate welfare to IUP, Temple, and Penn State.
Let me address this.
Sure.
First of all, the staff do a lot more than enter insurance, okay? Through the last, and I've been with the program since the start. Just for the record, my take-home pay is just over $54,000 after 24 years with the state working on this program, okay? I've been accused of making $100,000 and all kinds of stuff. I'll give anybody a copy of my pay stub.
It's on Penn.
So, first of all, the staff, they work on entering, yes, they enter the grades, they review the grades that the schools put in, they put together the training schedule, they work on the set system that you guys have access to. There's constantly, they debug the system, they work on that. They take a lot of phone calls from guys.
A lot of complaints.
They take, when training grievances come, when they're filed, are reviewed, and staff has to work that up through the process to get to the board. They put together the board packet. The issues that the board says, hey, we need more information on. The staff works on those things. They're not just data entry people, okay? And in fact, for the first 3 years of the program, I was it. And I deal with 1,300 constables. They take phone calls all the time about, hey, I can't get into class. They help people get enrolled in class. They call the schools and say, hey, let's help this guy out. So they resolve a lot of issues on a day-to-day basis, okay? And so saying they're sitting there doing data entry is very incorrect. And I just want to be on the record for that.
Okay. There are a couple more. Counselor. Or did you?
I just wanted to interject that it is a typographical error. I looked back through my notes, which I do happen to have with me. Of the constables that are listed as active and certified, it is 954 who are certified to carry the firearm.
Which would be the correct percentage
Which is
then.
the correct
Okay,
percentage.
good.
Thank
Counselor,
you for pointing that out.
identify yourself.
Ronald Clever, the solicitor for the PA FOC. First of all, I think you may have misunderstood what Jack was saying about data entry. He by no means said that's all she does. In fact, his point was exactly the opposite. Because she's the chief administrator in the program, his point was that something
I'm
such,
the supervisor of the program.
whatever the exact title is, you administer it and you're in charge of it. So, supervisor of the program, because of all the higher responsibility she has, he was pointing out that something like data entry could possibly be differentiated to other people. He was by no means
somebody to pay for the other people.
However, we do have clerical support
He was
available to us, so myself and my staff do a lot of clerical things that we probably should not be doing as part
I
of
just
our
want to say,
we're not going to discuss it anymore.
I just want to say he wasn't trying to say that she does
Okay, I
only
didn't
data,
take
not
it
even
as
close.
insult or anything. I just wanted to clarify.
Grievance procedure was mentioned earlier. When people have tried to use the grievance procedures, often they are told that the grievance must come from someone in the class. I don't believe this is a sports policy, but that's how it's being communicated when somebody does call up to make a grievance. So perhaps I may suggest that the board or the staff make sure that the grievance procedure is available otherwise, because as has already been pointed out, people don't want to be putting themselves on the line. They have a
We got to
relationship.
think about due process, and we just can't like grab somebody and throttle them because somebody told somebody that
But
somebody
you can,
did something.
but you can call somebody up and ask them if they did it, and they'll tell you the truth, I hope. So grievance procedures don't have to be anonymous, but they can come from somebody other than, in law enforcement, it's called on information received rather than on view, right?
But it cannot be anonymous. They must
I'm not
be turned in.
suggesting that it would
Okay.
be, no. But we've had grievances rejected by saying, well, I need to hear directly from somebody who witnessed it. Those people there don't want to do that. And that communication hasn't come from staff, it's come from the schools.
Okay, we'll make sure that the schools are made aware that any grievance can be filed by anyone across the state.
I could cover 17 topics. I'm going to not do that. I'll cover about 4 and keep them all to the point. I know there's other people who want to speak as well. Not positive the board can produce a letter. I know council is here, and I know that Mr. Merwine mentioned that as being part of the governor's office, you have to be careful when you make a statement out about that, especially about policy and legislation. So I know Commissioner Ruddock mentioned about possibly putting out a letter from the board. I do think you have to be very careful what kind of letter comes and who it's from. Because I'm not positive you can just, oh, here's a letter from the board. I think you need to just make sure you exercise the right kind of internal caution on that. These 4 courses of action in here, I would strongly recommend that there be roundtables. Commissioner Ruddock mentioned a roundtable, and then that word came up 2 more times after that. Constables have always filled out the surveys. Sometimes the surveys themselves don't actually ask the right questions. We would be looking forward to the opportunity to sit down at roundtables. There are things in the pros and cons as well as in the goals and exact phrase in these 4 courses of action that don't take into account what the constables themselves would really be seeing with the same questions in mind. So the very fact that this public voice is, sandwiched at the end, I understand for administrative purposes that makes sense for running the meeting, but quite a few times in the meeting where constables could have perhaps provided input. This is fine, but I'd encourage roundtables on this course of action, this serious budget question, and perhaps on other topics as well. Again, as long as you make sure you don't trip over the sunshine law on your way there, these things could be done at any time, probably right here, but I have great respect for those who come from a greater distance to get here. If they were in the West, that wouldn't be a problem at all for those of us who would miss a Western meeting, because the Western guys often miss the Eastern stuff.
Us from the West, Mr. Clever, we're always leery of traveling past the Blue Mountain.
There's only so many tunnels you can get.
It's like a children's fairy book or something.
It's already been touched on earlier about instructors, please sticking to the curriculum. The curriculum itself is problematic enough, and hopefully we could mention that at a round table as well. When they say statements that are not even judgment calls, but are completely incorrect statements of the law. We've had that happen before. We've seen it happen again in this calendar year. After a couple years of that completely flawed statement coming out. I realize there are gray areas, but instructors then have this liberty to say things, and a particular example has been brought up before, but in general, instructors, may I suggest to the staff and to the board, instructors should stick to the content that's in the material. There's it's not enough to use more, but there are checks and balances into that material, and instructors are saying things that are not correct and that are their own opinion, and they're saying them in an authoritative way because they're saying them while they're acting as an instructor. One last thing, the insurance companies still continue to get information from staff about something that's called moonlighting. There is no such thing in the law as moonlighting. It's not a correct term. And this has been damaging the ability of constables to get their insurance and to use their insurance. And again, sticking to the actual statute, the actual program, there is no such thing as that term. That's not a valid term to be using. And would encourage the.
I don't think you'll ever see that term used in the curriculum.
I
switched over to insurance.
Myself and my staff, we never use that term, and we do not talk directly with insurance companies unless it is in reference to someone's individual policy.
They tell us that they do contact the staff and that they are told that.
So let me know
where the disconnect is.
Let me know what insurance, who in the insurance company is.
We'll have to figure out where that disconnect is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I just have a very simple question.
Please.
Daniel Hollenbach, Adams County. If January 1st, 2020 rolls around and we're completely broke, I ask this question because I don't know, hopefully I have an answer.
and a landlord comes into an MDJ's office and says, I'd like to file a landlord tenant. I'm not talking about warrants, because obviously we've come to terms that some counties don't use constables for that. But even Lancaster County and other constables don't use, even Lancaster County and other counties don't use constables for warrants, still use them for civil process and landlord tenant actions. So if the fund is completely empty January 1st, 2020, and somebody comes into the office and asks to file a landlord tenant action, knowing the constables statutorily are required to have this certification to do our jobs, does the MDJ tell the landlord, sorry, we can't evict your tenant because he's not paying his rent, you're gonna have to come back whenever we get money in the fund? What happens then? You know, and this is something that's a good point, because I was talking.
It's an excellent hypothetical.
I was talking actually, I think yesterday with Sherry, because the rules of procedure say certified constable.
Sure.
Or sheriff. They changed that back.
Or sheriff, yeah.
Right. Well, in reference to constable.
But that's the answer. The answer is they'll be giving all that to the sheriff.
In reference to the constable, it says certified constable. And I couldn't tell you, you know, I mean, depending on what occurs, you know, and again, this is, I'm not trying to, you know, is it at a point where the board, because maybe something's in the work legislatively, and the board and the commission decide, so that doesn't happen, certifications are extended, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, that's the problem, is we're heading into unknown territory.
Well, because like Rod said, it does say or sheriff, but counties like Adams and a lot of smaller counties out there that only have a handful of sheriff's deputies wouldn't even be able to meet the statutory time limits that are required by law.
Allegheny County has about 225 deputy sheriffs.
Okay. Well, hopefully they can help
They
the rest
will
of
not be able to take the inundation of the magistrate's court's service of process. They wouldn't be able to do it. They simply cannot do it. They can't handle what they've got in common police court without picking up 44 magistrates' offices.
But I mean,
the
my
thing to
question
note is training this year certifies us through the end of next year, through the end of 2019.
Okay, yeah, but my question.
There is going to be some lead time that people
My
have
question
to
is
figure
hypothetical,
out.
but my question, you know, is
There's
a realistic goal, is a realistic thing
There's
that could possibly
gonna come
happen.
a day, and John answered it the way I would have. We're heading into uncharted waters. You've never been there before. Okay, and somebody else had their. I think it's somebody over there. No, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Manager Salter, Constable of Monroe County, also President of Monroe County Constable.
I'm sorry, what county?
Monroe County.
Okay.
I'm not going to beat that horse and go over topics that have already been discussed. I will say that my organization, I would be more than happy to come down for a roundtable discussion. I would encourage that, and I would hope that you guys make that clear when for all of the counties to participate in enough time. But my questions today are a little bit different.
I'm sorry, we're not going to be traveling around the state. I mean, we'd have meetings here.
Oh, of course. I mean, just letting them, all the other counties know when this meeting is.
Certainly. I mean, when we get to that point, anybody that's interested is going to be welcome.
Right. My question has to do with some of the training material itself. I noticed a big decline from when I went to the basic training and the quality of it. In all my con ed since basic, there really has been very little to no hands-on component. So, and another question I had is when it comes to trainings, like certain training, like let's say OC or Monadic, let's say we go to our local police departments and we take that training with them, and we send the certification cards down to you guys. Can you update that in your system?
I don't see why not. I mean, well, I don't know if anything, Sherry, where would we
Well,
put
right now,
that?
you mean as far as the OCAT? And
Right, well, where would we put it? And the only reason I'm asking is the way our system's built, where we file things in the system. I mean, I can't imagine it'd be a hard issue to do.
It would be something, it would be possible.
No, it'd just be a matter of
Same
making
thing
it.
with like TASER certification. We have TASER as our training agency, and we submitted the certificate of training for TASER. Are you going to keep that on file so if something happens and we have to go to court, the training agency can say this guy has training on file with.
Currently, that would be your own responsibility to do that.
We haven't
Because currently we do not keep the OCAT or MEB certificates because those are supplied to you right directly from the
Because you're
school.
certified by OCAD.
Yeah, because you're certified through that organization, not through PCCD or.
And other topics of training I'll leave for a roundtable, but one question I've always had throughout the years of going through the constant training as far as fee bill. I know the statute says that the training shall include a component on the fee bill and its application. That is a state law, correct?
Right.
So when I go to class and they talk about it for about 5 minutes. Why is the discussion, well, it's how your county does it? If it's a state law, is it not one state law that you should be teaching, not, it's up to the county to decide what the state law is?
Well,
Answer that, John.
Well, I was gonna, and the issue you just said, we
talking
can
about the
teach what the fee says. Whether or not your county follows that has been the issue since the beginning. And so part of that is we put in there is that, hey, you gotta follow whatever because there's no hammer.
Is there a disconnect between the counties, though, of knowing what the state statute is? So if the consuls are trained in the proper statute of what they're supposed to be, they can address their counties?
I would say
that it's up to the president and judge of that county to set the standard for what he wants to do.
And many times when it comes to the like remuneration for youth clubs, the president judge is involved with the county treasurer or whoever's responsible for paying in Allegheny County, it's the clerk of courts, right? Yeah. Maybe in your county.
Part of the problem is the act sets the fees, but there's no hammer on the counties if they don't pay those fees. So that has always left the constable in the position, you either work with the county and try and get it resolved, or you sue. And I can't remember the court case, it was the guy in Allegheny County years ago. And suing essentially the people you work for doesn't always work out. Right, and so, and that's just my looking at it, that's always been the issue. It's set in statute, but there's no consequences if the county doesn't follow.
From your perspective, from the board here, seeing how fees come in, do you believe that the counties are applying the CETA fees correctly in each case?
When we've looked
is
at
that something that you can address as a board as part of the problem?
and we have tried, and the board has over the last couple of years. And we just had this discussion with the MDJ Association, Special Court Judges Association, on, the CETA fee can get assessed, it's $5, but that's not automatic, it doesn't get locked in. A judge can assess $1. The $5 can get assessed, it may never be collected. If the guy's declared indigent and the county pays your fees, that $5 surcharge is not paid by the county. So when I was referencing earlier, when we looked at how much is assessed in the county and how much we collect and how it comes in over a couple of years, just looking at those numbers, it was about 17% we never see over 5-6 years. And it's a combination of all those things. The surcharge is assessed, but then the county pays your fees, so they don't pay the $5 surcharge, et cetera, up to a point where it's assessed, but the guy's never caught, it doesn't pay us, whatever. So there's always a percentage we're never going to see, And also, too, on the flip side, AOPC started a couple years ago, as you're probably aware, people could pay their stuff online. So there's even less work, it's the summary stuff and some more of the minor stuff that's not even getting to the DJ to be issued to a constable. How much of that has impacted?
In that situation where they issued a warrant, but they're able to pay it online, that $5 surcharge should be automatically applied.
We're breaching the require because it should be paid, whether you pay it in person or online. Who came up with that? Who knows? Okay, I think that concludes the public portion of the meeting, and I think it also, we've touched everything. Am I correct, Sherry?
Yes, we have.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait, we got one more hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One quick note. I'm Dennis Huber from Lehigh County. The gentleman to your left was talking earlier about constables taking the certification course without doing district court work. Regarding fees,
That was one of our courses of action we talked about, yes.
Right. Just so you're aware, if you read the statute, for a constable to carry a gun in any constable activities, he has to go through your course. Just wanted to be aware, and there are a lot of constables that do constable activities other than the district court work. So your argument kind of falls a little limp right there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, again, Francis Pikes has something to say.
We talked about round table discussions. If you would, any presidents of the constable associations, if you write your name and phone number, when we have one of those meetings, we'll contact you.
This will be helpful. Yeah, if you would, before you leave, or anybody from any of the, give us information. If we're gonna send something out.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, if you, I mean, my email is out there. If you are one from one of the state associations, if you would like to be included, email me directly, and then and whoever your contact is for your association, and I'll make sure that the invites go out to that person then.
Okay.
Once we get things coordinated and figure out what we're doing.
Now I make a motion for the. Can I get a second?
Apparently not.
Nobody wants to adjourn.
He's thinking.
We get a second? Roll call, aye.
All in favor?
I was waiting for it.
Congratulations.
I know, Yes. Good, how are you doing?
See how
It's always better when I run Thank you.